Hi guys, welcome back to Books with Brushu. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of the mid-year freakout tags for a lot of the booktube community. So my idea is a little bit different. So I do want to answer some of the questions that are in that tag. I also want to talk about my best books for 2025 so far because I've got several that are pretty good. I have not had very many 5 stars so far this year, and that's kind of a bummer, but one of my first reads in July was a 5 star, so that's looking up already. So today we're going to go through some of the books that I've read from January through June 2025 and answer some bookish questions. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So I got all of my questions from Rachel Catherine, and I will link her channel below, or the video, her mid-year freakout video, because I pulled all of the questions directly from her. So wherever she got them from, I think she says that in her video, but I got them from her. So the first question is, the best book you've read so far in 2025. This happens to be a book that I read in March, and the best book that I have read in 2025 is Manacled by Sin-Lin Yu. So this is a Draco Hermione fanfic, and I liked it so much that I went ahead and purchased the hardcover editions off of Etsy. There are 3 bound books, and this is just the first one. Manacled is my only 5-star read for the year so far, through June at least. So, really, really loved this book. It takes place right after the ending of Harry Potter book 5, which is Order of the Phoenix. So, if the Order of the Phoenix ended differently, and Voldemort won versus Harry. And so things take a turn for the dark, and the Order is trying to still fight Voldemort, but they're weakened and really struggling through years and years and years of this wizarding war. And we're following Draco because he is Voldemort's right-hand man. And him and Hermione end up getting together, and it's so great. This book is so good. Now, it's long. It's over 1,000 pages, and unfortunately you can't get it anymore because the book has been changed and is now being traditionally published, and that is alchemized, and it's coming out at the end of September. But this was my only 5-star read for this year, and it's so good. I loved it so much, and I'm so glad that I was able to get the fanfic before it was taken off the internet. So absolutely loved it. So the second question is the best sequel that I've read so far in 2025, and that is Sunrise on the Reaping. So I don't actually have a physical copy of this book since I borrowed it from my library when I read it. But I loved reading about Haymitch's story and his games and all of the turmoil that he went through and that everybody in the games went through. And I loved that we got to meet characters again that were in the original Hunger Games trilogy. We got to see them before they reached that point, and all of the connections and the things that had been going on behind the scenes all these years. There were tidbits thrown in of like why Snow doesn't like District 12 and a bunch of things that relate back to Snow's book, which was Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So I really enjoyed all of the extra tidbits that we got, and learning about Haymitch and his story and why he is the way that he is during Katniss's games. That is the best sequel that I've read so far this year. Okay, the next question is, A new release that you haven't read yet, but you want to. Well, one is Silverleaf. And if you watched my June TBR, you would know that this was on my TBR, and I was so excited to read it. And I actually didn't get to it in June, which I'm really disappointed in. So, Silverleaf by Danny Francis, I really want to get to this soon. Another book, a new release that I want to get to soon, is Rose in Chains by Julie Soto. So this is the Fairy Lou edition, and I just got this in the mail probably a week or so ago. And this is another Dramini fanfic adaptation that is now being traditionally published. So I have not read the original fanfic for this yet, but I have it on my Kindle, and I'm really excited about reading that and about reading this and seeing the changes that the author has made, and I'm sure the story is still really great. So this is another new release that I really need to read. Some of my most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. So I have a couple, and I'm pretty sure they all release on the same day in September. I'm pretty sure they all release on September 23rd, which is funny. The first one is Eldritch by Carrie Lake. Now this is the sequel to Anathema, and I read Anathema last year as part of the What We're Reading book club, which is Emmy Rossum's book club on Fable. And Anathema was 5 stars for me. And I have not stopped thinking about that book since I read it last year. It was so freaking good. I absolutely loved it. It was so good. Definite 5 stars for me. And I have been waiting for Eldritch to come out. And I cannot wait to pick that book up. And actually a couple days ago, Carrie Lake just revealed the cover for it. So I'm so freaking excited about that book. Now that series has, or will be traditionally published. Trad published version of Anathema is supposed to come out soon. You still will be able to buy the indie version of Eldritch, and that will be available until the Trad published version comes out, which is sometime next year. So I will be getting Eldritch when it comes out because I'm so freaking excited about that book. And then another one that of my most anticipated releases is the Primal of Blood and Bone by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now this is the 6th book in the Blood and Ash series, and I am doing a reread of all of the Blood and Ash books and the Flesh and Fire series. And I am so loving them. So I've never read the Flesh and Fire series before. And I finished the first book at the beginning of July, and it was so freaking good. It was so good. So I cannot wait. I cannot wait to pick up the 6th book in the Blood and Ash series. And then my last most anticipated read is Alchemized by Sin-Lin Yu, because I cannot wait to see how she has adapted that story to be trad published. I am so excited about that. So I've already pre-ordered all 3 of those books, and I can't wait for them to come out. And I'm pretty sure they all really get released on the same day. So that will be some, I'll have to pick and choose which ones I read first. Okay, so then the biggest surprise so far this year. So I took this to mean the book that I read that I was the most surprised about, that I was the most surprised that I enjoyed. And for me, that book is Lessons in Chemistry. So I wasn't expecting to like this book as much as I did. I listened to the audiobook and I really loved it. I loved the main character, Elizabeth Zott, and how her brain worked and how she thought about things. I loved the fact that I'm pretty sure this story takes place in the 60s, and I love the fact that she was pushing like actual food, like whole food, and cooking meals that feed your body, like actual healthy stuff. And how she explained the chemical makeup of these different foods and how that provided nutrition to your body. And I absolutely loved that. And I also loved her view on the world and view on women, and how she was very outspoken about how women can do anything they want. There's no reason that a man should get more credit than women, or that a man can do this thing but a woman can't. So I absolutely love the way that she thought and that she was vocal about things. So I really, really enjoyed that book. Then that leads to the biggest disappointment. So I picked a book that was the most disappointing to me because I was expecting to really enjoy it. And that was the first Alex Michaelides book that I ever have read, and that was The Fury. And I absolutely did not like that book. I would have probably DNF'd it if it hadn't been for one of my classes for Aurelium, for Magical Readathon in April. I don't think I like unreliable narrators. And I didn't love how the story progressed. I thought it was boring. I was bored. I didn't like it. It was disappointing to me because I had heard that his books were really great. So I guess for the first one that I picked up, I just chose the wrong one. I don't know. But that was the biggest disappointment for me. Then we have my favorite new author to me. Now, I do not think this is her debut book, but a favorite new author to me is Isabella Banez. And the first book that I read of hers is What the River Knows. And then immediately after that, I picked up Where the Library Hides, and I loved both of these books. So Isabella Banez, I love her writing style. I love her storytelling. I loved the unique magic system that she had in this duology. It was different than a lot of the books that I've read, and I've read quite a few fantasy books. So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. It was a YA story, but it doesn't matter. I really loved it. I've already purchased another one of her books and pre-ordered another one that comes out next year. So really enjoy this author. Then my newest fictional crush, which up until the beginning of July, it was this man. And then after I read a certain book in July, it has changed. But this is only through the end of June. So my newest fictional crush, believe it or not, I never thought in my life that I would say this, but it's Draco Malfoy. Who would ever say they have a fictional crush on Draco Malfoy? From the original Harry Potter series? Absolutely not. However, you read Manacled and you will understand. You will understand. Because Draco Malfoy is the High Reeve. And the High Reeve is the epitome of morally gray. And I loved him in Manacled. So he is my newest fictional crush. Then we have my newest favorite character. And I wasn't really sure who I would pick for this, but I'm pretty sure my newest favorite character is Elizabeth Zott from Lessons in Chemistry. For all of the reasons that I previously mentioned when I was talking about that book. So not only did the book surprise me, but I really enjoyed her character and I loved how she was and how outspoken she was. So I think at least up until the end of June that she is my newest favorite character. Books that made me cry. I don't love crying. I know when I pick up a Nicholas Sparks book that I'm gonna cry. And thus, I have not picked up a Nicholas Sparks book in at least 10 years, if not longer. Probably longer. Because they make me cry so hard. And I don't love that. So, however, this year I have picked up some pretty emotional books. So the two that really stood out that made me cry the most were Sunrise on the Reaping, because it was absolutely devastating because Snow is a dick. And then The Women by Kristen Hanna. Now, I don't have my copy of The Women because I lent it to my friend who is reading it now, and she actually called me twice yesterday to rant about this book because things are happening, and she had to call me and talk about it. So, Sunrise and the Reaping and The Women, both of those books are so devastating. Like, absolutely devastating. So upsetting. But so good. Like, I wouldn't trade that reading experience for the world. Like, it was so amazing. I think everyone should pick those books up, but that's just my opinion. And they did make me cry. So, then, a book that made me happy. A book that made me happy. And this is mostly because I had waited so long for this book to come out. And then, when it came out, I was out of the country, so I had to wait another 2 months before I was able to read it. And I was so friggin' ecstatic when I was finally able to read that. And that book is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. So, I love Fourth Wing, I loved Iron Flame, and I loved Onyx Storm. Now, I know it's a little bit controversial, especially Iron Flame, but I've loved them all. I love Xaden, I love Violet, I love all the characters in here. I love what happens. I love what's going on. I love reading this story. I love this world. So, this book made me so happy. Even though a lot of shit goes down, it still made me so happy. I loved this book. And I was so happy when I finally got a chance to read it. So, Onyx Storm. Now, oh, I have a couple other books that have made me happy, not just that one. Okay, another book that made me happy was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Now, this is the first Abby Jimenez book that I've read, and I enjoyed the story. I loved reading the romance. I loved the characters, and I loved the author's writing. So that book made me feel happy things inside. Even though the female main character was a little frustrating at times, that book made me happy. Another book that made me happy was rereading From Blood and Ash. I have loved this series for so long, and I know a lot of people, well, okay, I know some people don't like it. I absolutely love this series. I think it's so good. I love the world building. It's actually kind of complex once you get into it, and once you also start reading the Flesh and Fire series. And I love all the things that happen. And I love Poppy, and I love Cass, and I love Kieran, and I love Delano, and I love all the people. And I really love Reaver. So, you should read these books, because rereading this series has made me so happy. So happy. Okay, next question. The most beautiful book that I've gotten so far this year. And this is a book that I just got like a week ago. And that is the Fairy Loot edition of Heir of Storms by Lauren Hamilton Murray. Now, this book is so pretty. I was looking at all of my Fairy Loot books, and this is the prettiest one that I have. So it's got these beautiful sprayed edges. So the castle here, all of the clouds, the sunset or sunrise, and it's got clouds up top. It's got waves on the bottom. I love this book. It is so friggin' pretty. It's so pretty. And then we've also got the stunning naked hardcover. Like, look at this. Look how friggin' pretty that is. Like, oh my gosh. It is kind of giving me Heavenly Bodies vibes. The Fairy Loot edition of Heavenly Bodies kind of reminds me of this a little bit, and unfortunately I missed out on getting that one because I didn't have a subscription yet, and I'm so mad about that. But I mean, even these end papers are so pretty, but really it's the naked hardcover, the sprayed edges, the dust jacket. I just think that this is such a beautiful edition of a book. I love the color combo. I love all of it. What books do I need to read by the end of the year? So I have made a deal with myself that I need to slowly get through the Fire and Ice. That I need to slowly get through the Song of Fire and Ice series by George R. R. Martin. And the reason I say slowly is because it's been 7 or 8 something, I don't know exactly, years since he put out the last book. And there's not a release date anywhere for the next one. So that's why I say slowly. So I read the first book, and I read that book back in like 2015. When I tell you it was so hard for me to get through, like it was so hard for me to get through. And one of my friends that I work with, she said that the second book is much better and it's not nearly as much of a slog. So I need to get through this book before the end of the year. My goal is to read 1 book a year, and then maybe by that time he'll have another book out. Who knows? But this is the mass market paperback edition, and I didn't love reading the first edition of this book. So in my haul pile over here, I actually have a bigger, floppier version of the Clash of Kings that I got at Goodwill for $1. It's pretty beat up, but you know what? I'm not going to be keeping it. I'm just going to be reading it. So, need to get through this. So here are a few extra questions that Rachel Catherine had on her video. So it says, what books do you want to reread this year? So I've already talked about how I'm rereading the From Blood and Ash series. So currently I'm reading The War of Two Queens. So that is still a reread for me. And from then on, it will all be brand new. So that's a series that I want to reread. And then also with the newest video that Sarah J. Maas just posted. Because I always told myself that I would reread all of the ACOTAR books before she released book number 5, which it is book number 5, because A Court of Frost and Starlight is actually book 3.5. And Silver Flames is book 4. So it's technically book 5 that's next. So if it is in fact drafts that she's putting out, I think that's book 5 and 6 personally. So anyhow, that's besides the point. But I need to reread the ACOTAR books. I just grabbed one of them off my shelf. I need to reread the ACOTAR books, and I need to read Crescent City because apparently there's some crossover. So now I got to get into that series too. So I need to reread these books. Don't know a timeline on that, but it's like 7.5 books that I got to read. So reread ACOTAR. And these are alternate dust jackets that I got somewhere. I don't remember. My favorite author so far this year. That is Jennifer L. Armentrout. Because not only do I love the Blood and Ash series, which I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk about that by now, but I also have absolutely loved the Flesh and Fire series. And I've only read the first book so far. Love it. So obviously, JLA, my favorite author so far this year. Again, a book that I've been putting off. Here we go. For years, 10 years I've been putting off this book. We gotta read it this year. We gotta read it this year. If it doesn't come up in a spinner wheel TBR soon, we're just gonna have to read it anyway. So, a book that I enjoyed with mixed reviews. So the first one would be Onyx Storm, because there were definitely some people who DNF'd it. I did not. I loved it. The next one is Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. Now, I gave this book 4.5 stars, and I looked up on Goodreads, and I think the average rating was like a 3.7 or a 3.8. So that's a pretty significant difference. So I really loved this book, loved the story, and I am going to be reading the second one soon. A series that I want to finish before the end of the year, and that would be The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Now, I just picked out one of the books, but I finished Brissinger, 2 months ago maybe. So I have a reread of Inheritance, and then I have to read Murtagh. So very doable to finish by the end of the year, but I definitely want to finish these books. Now, I love this series so much. It's even better upon reread. I enjoy the writing, I enjoy the world, I love the dragons, so definitely worth it. We have 5-star predictions. These are not going to surprise you. It is The Primal Blood and Bone, Eldritch, and Alchemized, which are all three also my anticipated releases for the rest of the year. So then we have, do you think you'll reach your reading goal? Yes, I do, because I think right now I've read 54 books and my reading goal is 71. So how I decide my reading goal for the year is I pick one more book than I read last year. So last year I read 70 books. So my goal for this year was 71 books. And so far I'm at 53. And it's the 13th of July. So definitely will reach my goal. Am I going to change it? No, I'm not going to change it. And any new goals for the rest of the year? That would be to finish more series, because I'm tired of it having been 10 plus years since I've read a book in a series. Like there's no reason for that. Like, why has that happened? And it bothers me. Such as this. Because then you just forget what happens. And you've read this book, you know you want to continue the series, but for some reason you don't. And I know it happens to a bunch of people. It's just very annoying to me. So I have been making a conscious effort to read books in series and to complete series. And kind of in the back of my mind, once I've read a book in a series, I really want to wait no more than 6 months to read the next book in that series. Is this kind of difficult with my spinner wheel TBR? Yes, because those books don't always come up. However, I'm going to try to make a conscious effort to read these books in these series. Game of Thrones being one of them. The second book of the Jade and Dragon series, which I just got in the mail like a month ago. I need to read that. The Inheritance, which is the next book in this series. You know, stuff like that. Let's try to get through some series, because I don't like forgetting things that happen. And then I have to either start over or read a book where I don't remember what's going on. So, finish freaking series. So now we're going to talk about my best books of 2025 so far. So what I've decided is that anything that I have rated a 4.25 stars or above, I'm going to talk about right now. And that's mostly because I've only had one 5-star read. So, pulling up my Fable right now. And we're just going to start from the beginning of the year and go until the end of June. So, the first book that I read of the year that was 4.25 stars or above was actually Manacled. I rated Manacled 5 stars, and we've already talked about it, so don't need to reiterate. But again, love this book. So I finished this book in the beginning of March. So the first 2 months of the year, I had some pretty good reads, but nothing really worth mentioning. So Manacled. Then we have Onyx Storm, which I rated 4.5 stars. Then we have Eldest. This is the second book in the inheritance cycle. The first book is Aragon, and I read Aragon last year. So yeah, and I read Aragon last year. So I went ahead and continued the series this year, and I've been listening to them on audiobook because I love this narrator so much. So I gave Eldest 4.25 stars, and I love learning about the dragons in these books. I love the world. I love the magic. These books are definitely worth the read, for sure. Then next, I have Lessons in Chemistry, which again, we've already talked about. Then here's one we have not talked about yet. I have A Photo Finish by Elsie Silver, and this is the second book in the Gold Rush Ranch series, which is hard for me to say. So this is the second book in that series, and I gave this book 4.25 stars, and I loved the main characters in this book. And the female main character in this book is Violet Eaton, and so her brothers are the ones that the Chestnut Springs series focuses on, which I have not read that series yet. I wanted to start with this series first. And so I gave the second book 4.25 stars. Then we have Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen, which again, we've already discussed. And I gave this book 4.5 stars. Again, I enjoy this world. I enjoy the kind of steampunk elements that it has, and the Engineers Guild and how they create new technology. It's actually very interesting, all these different kinds of technology that they're creating, and I really loved that aspect of this book. So 4.5 stars, super excited to get into the second book in this series. Or maybe it's just a duology, I can't remember. After that book, our next highly rated book is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. So I gave this book 4.5 stars. Again, I loved the writing, I loved the world, I loved Inez, who is our female main character, I loved Wit, who is our male main character. And let me tell you, it's surprising that I still remember those names, because most of the time when I'm filming my wrap-ups, I have to look up who the main characters' names are because I don't remember. And it's been months since I've read this book and I still remember, so that tells you something. But I loved these characters, I loved this world, I loved being in Egypt, I love historical fiction, historical fantasy, whatever, I love it. So super enjoyed this book. Then we have Sunrise on the Reaping, 4.75 stars. We've already talked about it in this video. It's so good. It's heartbreaking. Loved it. Then we have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Again, loved this book. I loved the romance in it. The male main character, he was awesome. Do I remember his name? No, I don't. But I remember him, and I really loved him. And the best quote that I still say in my brain to this day since I read this book, and I finished this book at the beginning of May, is grace costs you nothing. And that's totally true, because grace does cost you nothing. It costs you nothing to be nice to somebody else. So, loved it. Then after Part of Your World, I read Brissinger, and I gave Brissinger a 4.25 stars. So this is the third book in the inheritance cycle. Again, doing a reread. Love these books, love this world, totally worth it. And then I had a really good reading month in May, because directly after that, I read Where the Library Hides, which is the second book in the Secrets of the Nile duology. And I gave this book 4.25 stars. In this book, we follow Inez and Wit as they progress in their journey in Egypt. They're trying to find things out, and they're trying to find people, and there's banter back and forth, and it's super cute. So definitely a good wrap up to the duology. I really enjoyed this book as well. Then we'll just lump all of the Blood and Ash books into one. because I rated the first 3 books in this series 4.5 stars upon reread. So we have From Blood and Ash, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, and then A Crown of Gilded Bones. A Crown of Gilded Bones. And I gave each of these books 4.5 stars. Absolutely love them. Love this world. Love the world building. Once you get further into the series, you actually realize how complex the world building is. And when you're involving the primals and the gods and the rites that they did versus how the rites have changed in this series over the years. So it's very interesting. And I really, really love it. So definitely, again, worth the read for sure. The Women by Kristen Hanna. I gave this book 4.75 stars. It was hard to get through at times. It was devastating. It was frustrating. It really pulled on your heartstrings, but it was a good book. It was so good. Definitely worth the read. Then the last book we're going to talk about, which I finished at the very end of June, is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, and I gave that book 4.5 stars. Now, in this book, we follow Claire and her sister Lydia, and Claire's husband is murdered in like the 2nd chapter or something, and Claire starts to discover some things about her husband that are not so good, and some things happen with Claire and Lydia. And then we're also introduced to their sister Julia. Their sister Julia was kidnapped and presumed murdered when she was 19. So it's been 20-ish or more, 25 years since that happened, and how their lives had so significantly changed since their sister disappeared. And there's a lot of crap that goes down in this book. So many trigger warnings. So many terrible things that go on. As Karen Slaughter books kind of are. But it was a good story. I enjoyed reading it. Obviously, I rated it 4.5 stars. So those are all the books that I have loved so far in 2025 from January through June. And a bunch of bookish questions. So now, hopefully that will give you more of an idea of what kind of reader I am, what kind of books I enjoy. Maybe we have the same taste in books. Maybe they're a little bit different. That's why I love these videos, because they help me judge, like, if this person loves this book, I'll love it too. Or if this person doesn't like this book, well, maybe we have different tastes and I'll actually love that book. So always good to know preferences of the booktubers that you're watching. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to Books with Brushu, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.